We have one presentation. It's with regards to the basic income guarantee, and the floor is now open to you, Becca.
We're going to provide the long and the short of basic income guarantee.
I have the long, right?
She has the long, I have the short.
Perfect. Thank you so much for allowing us to present with you this evening. My name is Becca Green-LaPierre. I come to you on behalf of the Kings County Community Food Council. A few years back, public health and community health boards identified food security as a problem in our area. And as one of the ways to address this issue, Food Council was formed. And as you can appreciate, without adequate income, you probably don't have adequate access to food. So we see addressing food insecurity, requiring upstream policy solutions that guarantee a stable, adequate income for all. So that's our connection to basic income. And I'm joined here tonight with my colleague Roger Tatlock from Basic Income Nova Scotia. And I think that Big NS is an appropriate group for you to belong to. Our Food Council is collaborating with Big NS as we reach municipalities across the valley so that our municipal councils can have a loud collective voice on this topic as they reach out to Halifax and Ottawa on something that we think is incredibly important. We do have two asks for council tonight. And Roger and I feel so strongly that especially during this time, as you folks are dealing with all the uncertainties of the provincial pallet housing possibility, that we keep our eye on long-term, permanent solutions to poverty and homelessness. And we think a basic income guarantee is one of those long-term, permanent solutions to poverty and homelessness. So don't worry, we're gonna come back to this slide. First, Roger and I want to make sure that we're all talking the same language, that we're all on the same page about what is a basic income guarantee. In your councillor packages, you would have received a document. Looks a little like this. It's called The Case for Basic Income in Municipalities. And in the first paragraph of this document, it's going to read this definition. Basic income is an income-tested, targeted, unconditional cash transfer from governments to individuals that enable everyone in Canada to meet their basic needs, participate in society, and live in dignity, regardless of their work status. A basic income guarantee would be a massively impactful upstream social policy investment. It would be a major structural change in how we deal with poverty, and it would be a major philosophical shift in how we view poverty, such as how we value our neighbor. A neighbor who could be unemployed because perhaps they're taking care of an elderly parent. A neighbor who could be unemployed because maybe there is some structural changes and they lost their job. A neighbor who could be unemployed because AI, artificial intelligence, made their job obsolete. There's a lot of reasons why people may be unemployed or not working and may be in need of a basic income guarantee. So a basic income guarantee could help any and all Canadians maintain an income floor. So the great news is there's a lot of researchers and advocates talking about this, working on this across our country. And that document that I was talking about, The Case for Basic Income in Municipalities, it was written by the Canada Coalition for Basic Income, and they're a coast-to-coast organization with representatives, Basic Income Nova Scotia being one of them. And they helped create this common definition of what is a basic income. And they also helped set principles that would guide the implementation of a basic income. So it's really wonderful having, being a part of a larger group that's working all across the country with a same definition, same voice, same understanding, same guiding principles. Another document in your package was Canada Coalition's submission to the Standing Committee on National Finance in support of a bill in the Senate on the same topic of implementing a basic income guarantee. And in that document, it spells out those guiding principles. I've got some of them on the screen here, but that document will detail them much more eloquently than I can give you or I have time to give you tonight as well. I'll pass it on to Roger.
So some say that Canada already has basic income programs, but they're targeted basic income programs. We're all familiar with the Canada Child Benefit for Families, Old Age Security, the Canada Worker Benefit, and the Canada Disability Benefit that both came in this summer. These are federal programs. Some of you may be familiar with two targeted basic income guarantee programs that happen in Atlantic Canada. One is in PEI, started in 21. It's for people on social assistance between the ages of 18 and 65 that are living independently. And that program gives enough money that the person can live at 85% of the market basket measure of poverty. Just last week, if you watched the news, on November 8th, Newfoundland announced that they're going to do a targeted basic income guarantee for people between the ages of 60 and 64 that are on income assistance. They're basically going to start them on OAS GIS at the age of 60. So then we have two questions. If you're going to look at basic income guarantee, isn't it time for a basic income guarantee for everyone? Isn't it time to stop picking and choosing who is deserving in our society? And secondly, isn't it time that the basic income guarantee is a livable amount of money? Want to flip it? Thank you. So you might be thinking, because I've been at municipal unit discussions before, this is totally out of our jurisdiction. We don't need to get involved in this. But poverty impacts our communities, and the costs of poverty are downloaded onto municipalities all the time. We believe that municipalities represent an important voice in social policy discussions at all levels. They are often on the front lines, working to ensure that residents and communities lead happy, healthy, sustainable, and productive lives. That's why we think it is appropriate to ask you to get involved in the basic income guarantee discussion by supporting our request. So the case for basic income and municipalities that you've had a chance to look at briefly outlines some benefits we could expect to see in Kentville if all residents have adequate income to meet their needs. It is appropriate for you to ask me why I think these effects will occur with the implementation of a basic income guarantee. My response is that you will not really know until a big is done. I understand that. But we're learning from experiments and time-limited trials that are happening all over the world. And this list of outcomes are some of the highlights. If benefits like this were not happening in experiments and trials all over the world, there would not be 40 different basic income guarantee programs in the state of California alone. Newfoundland would not be implementing a basic income, and PEI would not be repeatedly offering to our federal government to be the first large-scale trial of a basic income guarantee in Canada.
So I want to share a quote that the mayor, Mike Savage, mayor of HRM, clearly stated. This is last year at the 2002 Atlantic Canada Basic Income Summit. And I believe he also gave this quote last week at your NSFM. The feds have the money, the province has the jurisdiction, but the city, insert Kentville, insert any municipality, has the problems. The case for basic income in municipalities that you have in your councillor package was co-authored by Mayor Mike Savage. It does briefly outline, expanding on some of those things Roger touched on last slide, what we could expect if Kentville, where all of our residents had adequate income to meet their health, their housing, their food needs. We've also included in your councillor package some relevant stats to income and health that's relevant to Western Zone Nova Scotia. And the neat thing is you'd be in really good company if you guys chose to support basic income. To date, 9 municipalities across the province have already passed resolutions in support of a basic income. And we'll get to that slide with the 2 asks in just a second. Not just municipalities, but there's across the country, there's been Chamber of Commerce, thank you for that. Takes a village, right? The Atlantic Mayors Congress has passed a motion this summer in support of it. And if you were to do the math, which Roger has, looking at those 9 municipalities, almost 65% of Nova Scotians are represented by their municipal governments that show a support of basic income. So you really would be in good company. And just to maybe put a bit of a competitiveness, like Wolfville's already passed a resolution, Annapolis County's already passed a resolution, so you know, something to think about. So I'll let Roger say our 2 asks again.
So our asks to council, that the mayor write letters to the Prime Minister and Premier asking for federal and provincial territorial governments to work together to create a national livable basic income guarantee. that the mayor write a letter to the premier and all MLAs with copies to the prime minister and Nova Scotia MPs requesting that the province establish an all-party committee of the legislature to research and design the implementation of a livable basic income guarantee for all Nova Scotians. So we're asking you to get involved. We're asking you to take a stand, to make a stand, along with many of your peers on a very important issue at this point in time. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your consideration of this important issue.
Thank you. So I'll open the floor now. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I agree in principle with the basic income guarantee, but I do have some questions, just because I don't know very much about it, other than what you've said here. I'm wondering, first off, is there someplace in another country that has done this and has been doing it for any length of time?
An entire country?
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Because we're kind of asking our federal government to do it for all of Canada, so I'm
Yes.
just wondering if there is a country.
There is not an entire country. Some people say that Iceland does, but when you look at it, it's not complete.
Okay.
But I do know that South Africa has legislation in front of it now, and I know that Barbados has legislation and is looking at it now.
Okay.
The neat thing about being in Canada at this point in time, we can look at OAS and GIS, which is basically a basic income guarantee
Yeah.
for seniors, and draw analogies.
Yeah.
We can look at the basic income for children and draw analogies and extrapolate for there. But in terms of an entire country, I'd have to do a little bit more homework on what happens in Iceland. People roll their eyes and sort of look at me when they talk about Iceland. But I do know there is legislation in South Africa and there is legislation in Barbados at this point.
Right, so then my other question would be, well, I have two other ones. How do we see that being funded? Like, who would fund this? Like, the government has the money, well, the government has only a certain amount of money
The government has a
Yeah.
lot of money.
from
We have to
taxes.
Heather Roger here, he gets
So-
really excited about
I
it.
do, I get excited about this because
Okay.
I like the fact that the Parliamentary Budget Office, you guys are familiar with the Parliamentary Budget Office and what it does. It's basically the management accountants for our federal government. It does all the modeling, all the work, figuring out what things cost. Parliamentary Budget Office has been asked to look at this 3 times in 6 years. In 2021, they came back and said, if you do a basic income, it will cost $100 billion in the 25-26 fiscal year. Now, the thing about parliamentary budget is they can't tell you how to raise the funds. So they put that out and they talk about it. And there's been a lot of researchers looking at how to raise those funds. Half of the funds of that 100 billion, they believe, will be gotten from programs that currently exist. For example, if there was a basic income guarantee all over Canada, income assistance, those costs would be rolled into
Right.
what that costs. Would there still be a GST rebate?
Mhm.
Those costs probably be rolled in. So they're looking at $50 billion. That's what people think it would cost.
Okay.
$50 billion, to me, is a great deal of money. But during the banking crisis, they gave the banks $114 billion. Last year, they gave the oil and gas industry $100 billion. So you gotta keep context on the thing. There's a lot of people that are modeling how to pay for it. If you were to ask me, Roger, where's the money in Canada? Everybody in this room could say, the bank's got money, the major corporations have money, and there are a lot of really rich people in the world. David Thompson, Reuters Thompson is worth $46 billion. So there are people modeling how you would do tax reform in order to look at banking, in order to look at corporations, in order to look at the wealthiest among us. As simple as, for example, banks don't pay GST. In the province of Quebec they do, but no other province does banks pay GST. So there's ways to raise money. And that 50 billion sounds really scary, but contextually, I think it is something that can be done.
Okay, my last question is, if we raise and we give everybody basic income, and I'm not really great at economics, but we give everybody a basic income, then what stops goods and services from going up and gobbling up that extra money? Like, you know, that's kind of, it doesn't really, like I'm seeing, you know, stores and things like that just saying, okay, well, we can raise this up because now people have the money to pay for it. And so how does that level a playing field or anything if goods and service providers just up their?
Can I do that, or do you?
Sure.
That is a really good question. When you look at OAS didn't generate inflation. When they brought in child benefits, it didn't generate inflation. But I personally would agree with you that that's a problem. That's why the motion is for the province to look at it, to study it. I believe that there are going to be, have to be put in some safeguards. For example, around housing. You know, if you give people money now, will it creep up next year, the year after, 5 years from now? So the idea of studying is what's happening in front of the Senate as well. Bill S-233 is to develop a framework for a national basic income guarantee. There are some sectors that we would have to go in and say, okay, we're gonna deal with housing straight out and pass legislation so that that type of thing does not occur. And that's why, you know, our recommendation is to ask our province to sit down and have a serious conversation about basic income guarantee. And you would be one of the first people to send that question in, and I would agree with it.
Yeah.
So there may need to be changes in legislation around housing, around food security, and other types of securities. Otherwise, you run the risk of just creating the situation we're in now, only delaying it
Yeah,
X
exactly.
number of years.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
No, that's good, that's good.
Deputy Mayor.
But one of the questions that I did have, well, obviously, one of them is roughly what would it cost? But what does that income look like for individuals? Like, how much roughly does that equate to?
Can I have a turn?
You can have a turn. You can have a turn.
So in Ontario, in 2017, 2018, they did do a basic income pilot. Folks got around 1,600, is that right? About 1,600 a month.
Okay.
If we look at CERB, where folks got 2,000 a month.
Right.
We are guessing it'll be something like that, but it's really premature to give a number. So when the PBO and the Parliamentary Budget Office costed out, everything is rising, right? So we are guessing it might be somewhere in that range.
Okay.
But it would be difficult to say an exact number. But based on pilots in the past and what we've seen during the pandemic, it seems like the federal government thinks that that's an appropriate amount.
Yeah. When Kathleen Wynne did the study in Ontario that Doug Ford killed, she started at $1,400. When Justin gave us money during CERB, he gave us $2,000. When the Parliamentary Budget Office figured out it was around $100 billion, it was based on around $1,600.
Ah,
So, and Dolly gave people in her home community when they had the fire, $1,500.
yeah.
And the Rock and Oprah gave the Hawaiians $1,600. So there's somewhere in the low 20s. It looks like it's $23,000, $24,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one other question. So how many municipalities, provinces, obviously you want everybody to make these recommendations, but what percentage would you like to see?
In Nova Scotia, we think
To make an
because-
impact?
All of them. We think this is relevant to every single Nova Scotian, so we
Okay.
would like to see a unified voice. That way Halifax hears it loud and clear, that way Ottawa hears it loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay.
We're currently at a solid 65%,
Okay.
and we're not giving up. I think it's really important to be loud when you holler up. When you holler up to the guys on top, I think you have to be really, really loud.
Yeah.
At 65%, you know, we're just over the moon in less than a year at getting 65%. But I agree with Becca. We need to be really, really loud. Because there's one thing that I'm hearing about our provincial government is they respond to polls. They respond to public opinion. We have to be really loud.
And I think because the research just really shows that this is a viable option. There's been great research that shows that, folks that get this money, they don't spend it on what quote unquote temptation spending, we might call that alcohol or whatever. That the research doesn't show that. It shows that local stores are better supported, people have better income security, maybe they're purchasing a vehicle so they can access a job that may not have had an opportunity towards. So we know that the research shows this is a good idea. We need the political will. We need our decision makers to be bold. And as Roger said, polls will hopefully help move that political will to be in line with the research.
A recent study showed that everyone that got a trial of basic income went from homelessness to being housed. I mean, results like that just have to get you excited about this may be a modern solution for modern problems.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
Councillor York.
Thank you. Anecdotally, I've seen the impact of the rising costs in food and housing in our school food program, and just those numbers increasing week over week at this point. So I see firsthand, and I don't think you have to look that hard to see firsthand, the changing landscape of our communities. We already know that a living wage in the Annapolis Valley is around $25. I think it's like $24.50. It's right around $25. People are not making enough money to be able to live in Nova Scotia anymore. These programs have wildly successful stories that come out of them. I first heard about it sort of in like a contemporary context with Mayor Tubbs out of Stockton, California, and they were given in their municipality about $500 a month. So in comparison, less than what is being proposed, I think, across the country. But people are not spending that money on frivolities or luxuries. It's being spent on repaying debt. It's being spent on school. It's being paid to take a day off of a job that's not appropriate or not where you could be earning. Being able to afford to take a day off work so you can go and get more meaningful employment. This money, I think, I know right now it's kind of an idea that we're talking about, but this type of program has my full support, and I recognize that many people in this room have called me a snowflake before, and it's because of my beliefs on things like this. But I think there's only good things that happen when we raise those tides for all those boats. So I'm fully in support of programs like this across our country, and specifically across Nova Scotia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for our presenters? Becca, Roger, thank you so very much. I invite you to hang out until we have further discussion and a vote on your request.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next matter coming before us is with regards to the basic income guarantee. And you will recall that the request is for writing letters. So the Atlantic Mayors Congress, of which Kentville is not affiliated, however, Town of Wolfville is, met in Charlottetown at the end of July, I believe. And what they were recommending at that time was to pass resolutions supporting basic income, and they were calling it the PEI project, so lobbying the federal government, as you heard, and then as well to sign the Basic Income Now Atlantic Canada consensus statement, and groups and individuals can sign that, not just towns. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have as much data as our presenters did, so the only municipalities that I could Google were HRM, the Town of Wolfville, Pictou County, and Annapolis County have already thrown their support behind this. So if I could put a motion on the floor that CAC recommend to the November 27th, 2023 council meeting support of the basic income guarantee, if someone would move that. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And for the second, Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the November 27th, 2023 council meeting support of the basic income guarantee. Floor now open for discussion. No discussion. Are you ready for the question? The question is that CAC recommend to the November 27th, 2023 council meeting support of basic income guarantee. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much.